Ethan had always prided himself on being careful with his words. After all, as a human scientist on Valora Prime, he knew he was under constant observation. Humans were new here, and the Lyrians were a proud and delicate species, known for their sharp minds and strict customs. He had studied their culture for weeks before even stepping into the main research complex, but nothing could have fully prepared him for the elegance and quiet authority of Alara. Alara moved through the lab with the grace of someone who had never spilled a single drop of liquid in her life. Her slender frame carried herself with confidence, her every movement measured and smooth. Ethan couldn't help but notice the way the ambient lights reflected off her silver-toned attire, emphasizing her presence in a room full of advanced machines and blinking consoles. He reminded himself, focus. Science first. No distractions. The morning had started like any other. Ethan was adjusting a quantum sensor that would monitor Lyrian energy fields, while Alara was reviewing the data logs. She had been quiet, focused, on her work, as if the world outside the lab didn't exist. Ethan admired her dedication and, despite his inner caution, felt compelled to make conversation. "Your attention to detail is impressive," he said, hoping to keep his tone neutral. Alara looked up, her almond-shaped eyes slightly narrowing, a subtle smile appearing. "Humans notice such things," she remarked, her voice melodic but firm. "You are learning quickly." Encouraged by the response, Ethan wanted to say something more, something that felt honest. But in his nervousness, his words tumbled out before his mind could filter them. "And I must say your figure, it's very elegant." The moment he spoke, the air seemed to freeze. Machines continued their gentle hum, but for Ethan, the silence was deafening. Alara's eyes widened slightly, and for a second, her composed mask faltered. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply stared. Ethan felt a cold wave of panic. Oh no. That was wrong. That was terribly wrong. I didn't mean to offend," he stammered, waving his hands awkwardly. "I just meant, I admire your efficiency and the way you carry yourself." Alara's expression softened slightly, but there was still an unreadable distance in her eyes. Without another word, she turned and left the room, leaving Ethan alone with the blinking consoles and the echo of his own foolish words. He sank into the chair and buried his face in his hands. I ruined everything, he thought. One wrong comment, and I might have lost the trust of the most important Lyrian scientist on the planet. Hours passed, and Ethan tried to immerse himself in the data. He analyzed energy readings, calibrated sensors, and double-checked his calculations, but nothing could erase the image of Alara's quiet disappointment. Every time he looked up, half expecting her to storm back into the lab and formally reprimand him, he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Finally, the lab doors opened. Ethan glanced up, hoping it was a colleague here to assist with the new sensor array, but it was Alara. She didn't come straight to him. She walked slowly to the center of the room, her gaze fixed on the floor, and then she looked up. Her eyes met his. Calm, controlled yet unreadable. "Ethan," she said finally, her voice even. "You have a human way of speaking that is direct. That is not common among your kind, correct?" Ethan swallowed hard. "Yes, I speak honestly, sometimes too honestly, it seems." Alara studied him for a long moment, as if weighing his words against some invisible standard. "Honesty is rare," she said, "but it can be dangerous if not tempered with understanding." Ethan nodded eagerly, relieved to find that she wasn't angry. "I understand. I will be more careful, I promise." Alara's lips curved slightly. "Good. It is not only words that matter, Ethan, but actions. You will show understanding through your work and your behavior. Words alone are not enough." He nodded again, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Actions, not words. Got it. For the next few days, Ethan immersed himself in the lab's complex experiments. He worked closely with Alara, observing her methods, her careful adjustments of energy fields, and the quiet precision with which she approached every task. Slowly, he began to understand not just the science but the culture embedded within it. Every gesture, every pause, every calculation seemed to have meaning beyond the obvious. One afternoon, as Ethan was recalibrating a particularly sensitive energy matrix, he noticed a small anomaly in the data, something the Lyrians might overlook because it seemed insignificant. He hesitated, remembering Alara's words about actions speaking louder than words. Carefully, he adjusted the matrix to compensate, monitoring the readings until the anomaly stabilized. Alara entered the lab and glanced at the console. Her expression remained calm, but her eyes held a trace of something that made Ethan's heart beat faster. She stepped closer, reviewing his work without a word. After a moment, she finally spoke. "You noticed something others did not. That is commendable," she said. "You are learning to see beyond the surface. That is rare." Ethan felt a rush of relief. It was the first real acknowledgement of his ability, the first step toward earning her respect. He smiled shyly. "Thank you, I'm trying my best." Alara's eyes softened just slightly. "Good. Continue to focus on what matters, Ethan. Words are fleeting, but understanding is lasting." Days turned into weeks. The initial awkwardness between them began to fade. Ethan found that by observing, listening, and acting carefully, he could communicate with Alara in ways that transcended language. He learned to anticipate her needs in the lab, to adjust experiments without needing explicit instructions, and to solve problems creatively while respecting the Lyrian way of thinking. Yet despite this growing understanding, the memory of his earlier mistake lingered. Ethan knew he could never fully erase the moment he spoke out of turn, but he hoped his actions would show that humans were capable of learning and adapting in even the most delicate circumstances. One evening, as the twin moons of Valora Prime cast silver light across the lab, a soft chime echoed through the complex. Ethan glanced at the console and saw a message addressed specifically to him. "Private audience requested. Alara." He froze, heart racing. Was this a reprimand, or was it something else? He took a deep breath, reminding himself that human courage, honesty, and adaptability were what had brought him this far. With careful steps, he approached the designated room. The door opened silently. Inside, Alara stood by a large holographic display, showing intricate patterns of energy flows that Ethan barely recognized. She gestured for him to come closer. "You have made progress," she said, not looking at him directly. "It is time to understand something more important than any experiment." Ethan's stomach twisted with anticipation. He had no idea what she meant, but he knew one thing. This was a pivotal moment. His mistake, his directness, and his human nature had led him here. Now, the choice was his: to learn, to adapt, and to prove that humans could bridge the divide between species with understanding and courage. Alara finally turned to face him fully, her eyes calm but intense. "The energy patterns you have observed," she began, "are connected to something much larger than this lab, larger than your human science. To truly understand, you must see beyond what you already know, and you must do so without fear of being wrong." Ethan swallowed, realizing that this was not just a lesson in science or culture, but a test of character. He nodded, determination settling into his chest. "I'm ready." Alara's lips curved in a faint, approving smile. "Good. Let us begin, Ethan. Let us see how humans can truly rise to the challenge of understanding Valora Prime." As the lab lights dimmed and the holographic patterns flickered to life, Ethan felt a sense of awe he had never experienced before. His accidental words, his nervous honesty, and his determination to adapt had led him to this moment, and for the first time, he understood something profound about humans. Even when mistakes are made, courage and action could turn them into opportunities for respect, trust, and discovery. The room was silent except for the soft hum of energy flows, but Ethan's mind was alive with possibility. He knew that the path ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to prove that humans, direct, adaptable, and courageous, could not only survive, but thrive among the Lyrians. And as he looked at Alara, standing there with her calm strength and quiet authority, he knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test not only his mind, but the very essence of what it meant to. Ethan stepped further into Alara's private lab, the holographic patterns glowing softly around them. Each line and curve of the energy flows seemed to pulse with intelligence, as if the planet itself were alive and speaking in a language only the Lyrians truly understood. He took a deep breath, recalling the lessons he had learned since his first mistake. Words mattered less than action, and understanding came from careful observation and empathy. Alara watched him silently for a moment, her gaze assessing, her posture calm. Then she spoke, her voice steady, yet carrying a weight that made Ethan lean in closer. These patterns are connected to the core energy network of Valora Prime. Humans have never observed it directly. Your role is not only to analyze, but to learn to work within it. Ethan nodded, feeling the responsibility pressing against his chest. I understand, I'll do my best. Your honesty brought you here, Alara said. Do not let it be wasted. He spent hours studying the energy network, guided by Alara's subtle instructions and corrections. The work was unlike anything he had done before. The patterns were complex, almost alive, and required more than logic. They required intuition and careful patience. Ethan's human mind, however, had a unique advantage. Where the Lyrians often approached problems with strict precision and tradition, he could think outside the established rules. One anomaly caught his attention, a small but unusual fluctuation near the northern energy node. The Lyrians had dismissed it as inconsequential, but Ethan's curiosity compelled him to investigate. Using the portable interface, he isolated the fluctuation and adjusted the surrounding parameters. Slowly, the reading stabilized, revealing a hidden resonance in the network that had gone unnoticed. Alara's eyes widened slightly as she observed his work. You see what others cannot, she said. Humans often approach problems differently. It is refreshing. Ethan smiled, humbled and encouraged. I'm glad it helps. Days passed and their collaboration deepened. Alara began to treat Ethan less like an inexperienced human and more like a partner. They shared long hours in the lab, discussing theory, testing experiments, and uncovering new insights about Valora Prime's energy network. Through their work, Ethan began to understand not only the science but the Lyrian approach to life, precision, patience, and quiet strength. Yet it wasn't just science that brought them closer. Ethan noticed subtle shifts in Alara's behavior. She began to trust his instincts, consult him on decisions, and even offer small hints of personal insight. For instance, she would occasionally glance at him when he solved a particularly difficult problem, or let a faint smile show when he navigated a tricky situation successfully. One evening after a long session monitoring energy flows, Alara spoke softly. Ethan, your presence here has changed the way some of my colleagues see humans. They are beginning to recognize that your species has qualities they did not expect. Honesty, courage, and an unusual flexibility in thought. Ethan blinked, surprised. You mean they respect humans? Alara nodded. Respect is earned, not given. You have earned it through observation, understanding, and action. Do not underestimate the power of being willing to learn, even when mistakes are made. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. It was one thing to complete experiments successfully. It was another to be recognized as a bridge between two species. He had come to Valora Prime uncertain and cautious, fearing he would misstep and fail. Now he realized that human traits, directness, adaptability, and courage, were not weaknesses here. They were strengths. Their work led them to the core of the energy network, a vast, humming chamber beneath the surface of Valora Prime. Here, the energy flows were immense, almost overwhelming in their complexity. Alara guided him carefully, explaining the functions of each node and the delicate balance that maintained the planet's stability. Ethan listened, absorbed, and then spoke carefully. If we adjust the resonance slightly here and here, we might stabilize fluctuations in the northern and southern nodes. It could improve energy distribution without causing disruption. Alara's eyes met his. For a moment she said nothing, then slowly nodded. Do it. But proceed with caution. One wrong move could have consequences. Working together, they adjusted the network, their combined efforts harmonizing human ingenuity with Lyrian precision. Slowly, the energy flows stabilized, glowing brighter and stronger. The once unnoticed anomaly was now fully integrated, enhancing the planet's core energy system. Alara stepped back, observing their success. You have done well, Ethan. Your willingness to act, even when uncertain, has brought balance to something my people have long studied without change. That is a remarkable achievement. Ethan felt a surge of pride. We did it together, he said. She allowed herself a small, genuine smile, one that conveyed both respect and admiration. Indeed, collaboration can bring results that no single perspective could achieve. Humans have much to offer, if only they are willing to learn and act with integrity. Over the next few weeks, Ethan's presence in the Lyrian research community became more than tolerated. It became valued. Other scientists began seeking his input, curious about how human thought could complement their traditional methods. Ethan observed quietly, offering insights when necessary, careful to remain respectful and mindful of their culture. He also noticed changes in himself. The fear that had gripped him after his initial mistake with Alara began to fade. He learned to trust his instincts while balancing them with observation, to speak when appropriate and act when needed. Every challenge, every experiment, and every interaction reinforced a single truth. Humans could thrive anywhere if they combined courage, empathy, and intelligence. One afternoon, Alara called Ethan to the central chamber once more. There is one final task, she said, her voice calm but commanding. It will test both your skill and your understanding of Valora Prime's energy network. Are you prepared? Ethan nodded, confidence replacing the anxiety that had plagued him for weeks. I am ready. Together, they approached the core interface, a massive console with intricate holographic controls. Alara guided him through the procedures, but this time, she allowed him to take the lead, offering only subtle corrections when necessary. Ethan adjusted the nodes, fine-tuning energy flows across the planet. The network responded to his actions with precision, reflecting the trust and collaboration that had grown between him and Alara. Finally, the system reached a state of perfect balance. Energy pulses rippled across Valora Prime, harmonizing the planet's natural flows and stabilizing its environmental systems. Alara studied the readings, then turned to him, her expression soft and approving. You have not only learned, Ethan, she said, but you have contributed something lasting. Your human qualities, curiosity, honesty, and courage have strengthened this world. Ethan felt a swell of emotion. It was more than personal pride. It was the realization that humans could leave a positive mark, even on an alien world. Thank you, Alara, he said. I couldn't have done it without your guidance. She inclined her head slightly. And yet, it was your willingness to act and learn that made all the difference. Never forget that. Even mistakes, when met with understanding and courage, can become opportunities. The weeks that followed marked a new era of collaboration between humans and Lyrians. Ethan continued his work, now fully integrated into the research community. He had earned respect not only through intelligence, but through adaptability, honesty, and persistence, the qualities that made humans uniquely capable of bridging cultures and facing challenges that others might shy away from. Ethan often reflected on the moment when he had first spoken thoughtlessly about Alara's figure. It had been a mistake, a moment of human bluntness that could have cost him everything. Yet, it had also been a catalyst, forcing him to learn, adapt, and prove the value of his humanity. Alara remained a mentor and ally, her respect for him growing alongside their shared achievements. They had faced complex problems together, discovered new truths about Valora Prime, and shown that collaboration between species could yield extraordinary results. And as Ethan stood in the central chamber one evening, Watching the planet's energy network pulse in harmony, he realized a truth that went beyond science. Humans had the capacity not only to survive in alien worlds, but to excel, to inspire, and to leave a legacy of courage, honesty, and understanding. Mistakes could be forgiven, misunderstandings could be bridged, and humans, when acting with integrity and empathy, could shine even in the most unfamiliar and challenging circumstances. Ethan smiled, knowing that the journey was far from over. There were more discoveries to make, more challenges to face, and more opportunities to show what humanity could achieve. But for the first time since arriving on Valora Prime, he felt truly at home, confident that humans, direct, adaptable, and courageous, could make a difference anywhere in the galaxy. And as he glanced at Alara, standing nearby with her quiet strength, he realized that one moment of accidental honesty had led to a partnership that would change both their worlds forever.